People say, hey, I made this, and I'd be earning half of that and be frustrated. Or, hey, look, I went viral. I've got look at all my views. And it's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's about doing your own thing. And as long as I'm happy and content, and that's the mindset I took becoming a creator. Like a lot of my friends were saying, why don't you go and get this? If you don't want to start a business, why don't you go get a high power job, CEO of a company here, you'll earn hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I said, well, I don't care. It doesn't interest me. Just because, you all earn X amount doesn't mean I have to. So it's about doing your own thing and what makes you feel happy.
Welcome to Mindful and Dream podcast, where we help you to not lose sight of what's really important whilst chasing your dreams. Today's guest is Ash Jurberg, who's currently a writer, but previously led a global cultural exchange business, which meant that he's travelled to over 100 countries across the world. He gave up his business because he wanted to have greater control over his own time and to share his lessons that he learned from all of his travels. He's had a busy life, and he also founded Australia's first ever home delivery service way back in 1995. On top of all of this, he likes to do a bit of stand-up comedy on the side. I hope you enjoy listening to our conversation today. Welcome, Ash. It's great to have you on Mindful and Driven.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
I've edited you for over a year now as part of the Entrepreneur's Handbook. So we've had our little chats in the private notes, and I've got to understand a bit of your personality. And one thing that's always amazed me is the amount of travel you've done from your previous business.
Yes.
So you've seen lots of different parts of the world, you've got to experience different parts of culture. Along that journey, have you found common advice that you disagree with from people that you hear often? And then from your travels, you discovered that's just not true?
Yeah, I mean, something I discovered, not necessarily through travels, but just through life, is the push to have a routine. So it's very big, the morning routine, the afternoon routine. You get up at 5 a.m., you do, 4 hours of yoga and meditation, and then you do this. And I've tried routines and they just don't work. So I've come to the realization that routines are for some people, but not all people. As long as you achieve what you need to achieve, it doesn't matter if you do it the same way every time or a different way. It's just whatever works for you. So I'm a very anti-routine person.
I'm the same way. So I have routines that work for a while, but then one thing I think people do is sometimes stick to a routine for too long, and they're forcing themselves to do it, even though it's not really working for them. So I used to, when I was at work and consulting, I used to wake up at 6 o'clock every day, go to the gym from 6 to 7, then I used to read until 8 o'clock, and then I used to leave for my job. And that worked for a bit. And then I used to keep telling people I was doing it, even though I'd maybe do it 2 days out of the week. And then I just realized that this is just fake. I'm not actually doing it anymore. I can't keep it up. It's not making me happy. Why am I doing it? Why am I forcing myself to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess bring it back to travel. You get the people who go on a vacation and it's like 9 a.m. breakfast, 10:30 a.m. museum, 12 midday. It's this the number one restaurant on TripAdvisor. 2 p.m. It's this, and they literally book out every minute of the holiday. I don't do that. I go, okay, there's a few things I want to do, but if I sit at a coffee and hey, Emma's at the next table and we strike up a conversation, what are you doing? Let's have a chat. Let's walk around. That sort of stuff. What have you done? Oh, if you go down this little alleyway, you'll see this cute little coffee shop. It's run by an elderly couple. Sit down there, that sort of stuff. So, yeah, routines don't work for work, and they don't work definitely don't work on vacation.
Yeah, I think this idea of routine and productivity, sometimes I think people get it wrong, where they think the end goal is to be productive. Whereas to me, being productive isn't about that at all. It's about, if I can get my stuff done, that means I've got more time to do the other stuff. And like I said, if you've got slack in your schedule, that means you can just have a chat and you don't need to think about, I need to do this, I need to do that. And that's the position I want to get to, where I can get some of the stuff done faster so that I have more free time and I can go out and I can chat to people and I can just go for a long walk and decide, actually, I'm going to go down that way because I've never been there before. Whereas if I'm too scheduled, I lose some of that spontaneity. And I think life is about that spontaneity in many ways.
Absolutely. I'm going to misquote this, but I think it was either Anthony Bourdain or Paulo Coelho, I can't say his name, who said, routine's deadly or dangerous. You do. I stuffed that quote up, but, Google it and you'll find it. But I agree, your routine is deadly. So people who, like my father, he's gone to the same restaurant on the same day of the week and ordered the same thing every day since he's retired. And I'm going, do you try something else on the menu? No, but I like this. But they could have something else. Yeah, but I like this dish. It's like a Seinfeld episode.
Yeah, and I think that's where maybe it comes into play of the routine's got to work for you. If it makes you happy, then do a routine. But don't feel like you have to have a routine just because other people have it. Like, it was a whole Robin Sharma 5 a.m. club. I know so many people who read that book and were super motivated for a whole 2 weeks and then realized they really don't like waking up at 5 a.m. But there's this whole cult around it. And yeah, it might make you be able to get more done before the beginning of the day. And that works for some people. What I found is, like, in the summer, I'm way more motivated to do stuff early in the morning because the sun is shining. I can go to the gym. I can go for a walk. In the winter, I don't really want to do that. So I rest a bit more. I give myself more sleep because that's what I need. And it's understanding yourself, I think, is the key thing underneath all of this, is that if you're making a routine, it might be that works for a specific period in your life, but it doesn't work for other periods. And it might be my routine for one summer. It doesn't work the next summer either. And I think there's a constant adaptation needed. So you've got to listen to your own body. And then that's the key. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've got twins, and when you have a kid, one thing when you have a baby, the first thing you're taught is, you got to have a routine. You've got to feed them at the same time. You got to sleep at the same time, that sort of stuff. And I got emailed, and this is the routine. This is the routine. And my kids it didn't work for them. And I got hounded saying, well, they're not sleeping because they have a routine. But I was saying they have a routine that doesn't work. That's why they're not sleeping. But it was just amazing how every parent said you have to have a routine. And I guess my kids are like me, and they're just not routine kids.
It's discovering that about yourself is quite difficult because everyone tells you need a routine, then you feel lesser, I think, if you can't have a routine. But that's fine. Like, it's just about what works for you. And like, in your past, like, you've done so much. You've been to like over 100 countries. You've run your business. Was there a time that you got your routine wrong and you were just struggling because there was too much going on and you couldn't quite find your balance?
Yeah, I guess when I started my most recent business, it was trying to be everything to everyone and taking on too much. And the routine just became, well, you just work. It's work 24/7. So it just all blended. So it wasn't a strict routine. It was just a work enveloped everything. And that became too much. And it wasn't too much later that I realised that just because you run a business, you don't have to do everything. And it's hard to let things go, and it's hard to delegate and give people independence and authority. But that's what I struggled with, and that really impacted me.
How did you come to a realization that that's what you needed to do? Was it a simple epiphany, or did it take a bit of time to change that?
I did that for probably the first 3 or 4 years, and it was actually my business partner who made the suggestion, thankfully, and said, we need to get a manager to run the business and to take over this stuff and let you be the creative one, let you be the entrepreneurial one, because, you doing the micro tasks doesn't work, and you're trying to take on to everything, and you've got to trust others, which hit home from an emotional standpoint. But from a financial standpoint, she also said, if we ever want to sell this business, we can't, because it relies too heavily on you, and no one's going to buy this business without you.
I'm in the same process myself at the moment, is that I've got my different income streams and the different partners I work with. And if it's all down to me, then I'm screwed, right? Because then I'm not really free by working myself, because everything depends on me. So what I'm doing now is working out my systems, because if I can work out my systems, and I've got a virtual assistant who's going to be editing this podcast, and there's a document now that says every single thing about the process. And because she's got that document and she can talk to me, the idea is that I don't need to do this myself anymore, which frees up significant amounts of my time, and I can just focus on the stuff that is just me, because only I can have this conversation with you. I can't outsource that, but that's what I want to do. That's the part I enjoy. So how can I systematize the other stuff? And I think it's for people out there as well. Sometimes they think, oh no, because it costs money. And yes, it does cost money, but you've got to work out how much is your time worth. Do you want to be doing something that you don't enjoy doing because it saves money? If you're doing okay and you've got enough money to be able to outsource it, because isn't that the whole point of life, to be able to spend time how you want to spend it and to enjoy it? So people put themselves in their own prison because they're worried about the financial side.
Absolutely. So before we recorded this podcast, and unfortunately your listeners missed out some gold nuggets that we were talking about, I mentioned I've been doing a bit of business coaching that's come out of my writing, and one of my clients, actually someone a writer on Medium, has asked me to coach them. And I was going through my past and what I failed to do. And they're going through the same stuff now. And so it's kind of ironic if Ash 10 years ago could sit in on this conversation to hear what he was saying, because he did everything the opposite of what he's telling you to do. But I want you to learn from my mistakes. And I've done the same sort of thing saying you guys, and they've in the process of writing standing operating procedures and manuals and processes and hiring VAs and just removing all that stuff. It's easy to say when you're outside a business looking from 100 feet above, but when you're in it, it's really hard to let go. So it's great that you've recognised that already and you're taking steps towards it.
And it's an exercise I always recommend to people as well, is that imagine that your problems aren't your problems and somebody else's. And I get somebody else to role play it. So like, you pretend to be me, and then I'm going to give you the advice you gave me. And when people try to start making excuses, you realise how lame they sound. Because I would tell other people to do this. I'd be like, oh no, I can't do this because of these reasons. But if my friend said that to me, I'd be like, no, that's rubbish. Like, you can't say that. And I think sometimes like switching role just makes you realise how like irrational some of your excuses are for why you can't do things that are healthy for you. Because there's always a reason. You always find a reason to make excuses like, oh no, this is the right thing for you to do, but I'm different. Like, I don't need to do this. And yeah, that's what I'm coming to now.
It's very true. And people tend to do it more with relationships. Like if you're in a relationship, you might go to a friend saying, this is what I'm going through. What do you think? Or I like this person. What's your advice? But people seem more reluctant to do it for other personal issues or for business issues.
I think the business issues is that, I think it comes down to insecurity, right? Is that you don't want to seem like you don't know what you're doing. And most of us don't know what we're doing, right? We're all building this ourselves. Like, you go through mistakes and that's how you learn, as you did. Do you find the coaching, the stuff you tell other people, is also then got a good feedback loop to your own business? Because you tell somebody else to do something, and it's like, wait, I should be doing that myself. Has that helped you a lot in terms of your own understanding of the right way to do things?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's always easy to, do as I say, not as I do. So you've got to take on your own advice. So yeah, when I have got these few coaching clients and I say things and go, well, actually, I'm not doing that 100%. I should probably do that more. And even in this conversation with you, I'm thinking, well, I've never had a VA, but maybe I should really look into that about passing over some of the admin stuff. Because as I said, like you, I enjoy the creative component. I enjoy talking more. What are the less fun, mundane tasks that I can pass over?
It's the trap of you're doing well and you can appreciate you're doing well. But I think whenever you're an entrepreneur, you've always got that worry that things aren't going to be good in the future. And that sometimes stops you from making those longer term decisions because but I can't say for certainty that this is going to work out. So it's like an investment, right? If you train somebody up to do things in the way that you like, then you need to still be doing that in a few months' time because that initial period is quite difficult. And it is difficult to train somebody up. And there's no point me saying to people who are listening, oh, if you just hire somebody, they're going to fix all your problems. It will take a little while. Like when you had your manager for your previous business, how was that relationship? Did you find at the beginning you were a bit defensive but hand things over?
It was really hard. And actually at one point, it might have been after 6 months, she said to me, she goes, do you want me to be the manager or not? Well, we called her CEO. It was a fancy title. Do you want me to be the CEO or not? Because if you want me to, you've got to step back and you've got to listen to what I say and you've got to accept my decisions. And that was hard. And conversely, she found it hard because in effect, she became my boss. And she goes, well, this is the guy who owns, half the company. This is the shareholder. This is the director. And I'm the boss. How do I manage that relationship myself? And I had to recognize it was hard for her and put her in an awkward position. So it probably took all up 12 to 18 months. And even then it wasn't perfect.
What changed our relationship? So you said that she's stood up and said, I need this to change. Did you do anything in particular to make their relationship easier? Was there any tactics you could give other people who are listening?
One thing I shared with other staff, I said, because they kept, not all of them, but some of them kept coming to me and I would offer advice or say, yeah, you can do that or no. And I had to say, don't come to me for anything. This is the authority of command and I don't like, structures that much or higher up or superiority. But I said, you've got to go to this person. Don't come to me. Just think of me as Ash and I'm just another employee. So that was probably the easiest change to make in terms of don't come to me. And just readjusting my mindset to saying, okay, I'm not running the show now because of, scalability and gearing up to potentially sell and freeing up my lifestyle, and it was a mindset more than anything else.
Hi everyone, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. I want to take a quick break to ask you to check in on yourself. There's many people struggling with balance, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. The tips that my guests and I share can hopefully help you along the way, but if you already feel overwhelmed or burnt out, it's probably best that you ask somebody for help too. For some, this might be a friend or family member, but others might feel like they have nobody they can talk to. If you're one of these people, check out the link in the show notes. It's for United for Global Mental Health. They've got helplines all across the world with people willing to listen on the other side. It's important to let somebody know how you're feeling. Now, back to the show. So now you're a full-time content creator.
Yeah.
Have you found the balance easier now that you don't have a company behind you, you don't have employees, you don't have a CEO? Is that easier now, or are you still struggling with your balance in different ways?
Well, it's easier overall. So one of my coaching clients actually said, "Can you come on and manage a team for me? I've got 7 or 8 people. Can you manage them and do that sort of stuff?" And I said, "I've been there before. I don't want to do that." And when you're just graduated from college, everyone wants to be a boss. Everyone wants to be a manager. It's not what it's cracked up to be. I mean, I've done it for a long time, but I prefer to do my own thing. So I love not having other staff to worry about. Oh, this person's called in sick, or this person's just resigned, or I have to hire this. It's just all on me. But like yourself, it means it's all on me. Yeah. So if I can't really take a month off without taking a big dent in my revenue and earnings. So it is a balance. But overall, I'd say it's a much more positive one. The lifestyle is much better.
Is there anything that you want to change at the moment with your lifestyle, that you're trying to make those changes to make it more sustainable? Because, as you said, it's the same thing with me. When I take time off, I can't fully switch off. But for me, that's the flaw. Like, I want to be able to switch off, because it's not really healthy if I can't take a week off where I completely enjoy myself. And you've been in it for longer than I have. Have you got any ideas of how you're going to be able to do that, where you can just take time off and go on holiday, vacation, and enjoy yourself?
Yeah. It's, well, like I said to you beforehand, next week will be the litmus test, because it's the first time. So Australia has had their borders closed for pretty much since March last year, and just opened up. So this is the first time I'm actually going to be able to travel. We've been in lockdown and stuff, so there hasn't been other opportunity. So it's going to be the litmus test. But even on the weekends, I'll go to my partner, say, I had a pretty good week this week. I did a lot of articles. I did this. So I'm on it right today. And she always says, "Are you asking me for permission?" And that's the thing. It's like I feel guilty. Like I justify to her, "I'm not going to work today." And she goes, "You don't have to. A, I'm not your boss, and B, this is why you chose this life." So I'm interested to see how I go over the next 2 weeks. I'll probably do a bit of work, but I want to wind down and take the time to relax, because I've earned it. You've earned it. We all work hard. You just got to take that time.
And I think it's one of the traps as well of content creation, which people who are on the outside don't necessarily realize when they look at the lifestyle and think it's very glamorous, is that it's quite hard to switch off, because you are your own boss, and if you don't do things. So yeah. I think who popularizes it is maybe people who are very young, and they say about the nomadic lifestyle and they're traveling and writing. But when you're a little bit older and you've got 2 kids, you've got more responsibility. If you're not earning for a month, or things aren't going so well, that has impact on you. And it's different, right? Because you're a content creator who's got 2 kids, which means that you've got to provide for them, you've got responsibility. If there's a bad month, it's not just you who's affected, it's other people too. Yeah. And have you found that? Does it scare you, or are you quite comfortable and you feel secure in what you're doing?
It does scare me. I think, well, what if Medium shut down tomorrow? Okay, I'd lose X amount. What if Newsbreak shut down? I'd lose that amount. The things I can't control. I've got other investments, and I've got my finances are okay, that I can survive for quite some time. So I'm not 100% reliant, but it's scary. When you're in a job like you did, you go, okay, I've got a contract. I'm earning X amount per year, and that happens until I leave the job. That doesn't happen. So it can be scary, and I won't lie, there's been occasions I've woken up at 3 a.m. in the morning on, Jesus, okay, what's this month looking like? But you've got to put that behind you. And my partner actually, again, is good at that. She'll go, you're going to have good months, you're going to have bad months. You don't have a fixed income. You take the good with the bad. So, celebrate, when you have a month which goes off, celebrate that. And remember that when you have a poorer month. And that's something which I'm getting better at, but I still need to improve. I think we all need to do that.
I think there's a weird psychological thing as well. It's like you said, so I worked in consulting for 7 years before I quit my job. I went into this world. So I've got savings. Like I said, if I didn't earn anything for the next year or even 2 years, I'd probably be okay. But I think there's a mental thing about if I'm dipping into my savings, then it's just scary, even though there's enough there. And it's this weird scarcity mindset, which I can see myself, I'm self-aware of it. But even though I know that it's a wrong mindset to take, I can't help myself. And it's something I'm working on myself with being more accepting, where, like I said, if I want to take a couple of weeks off, it's fine if I don't earn anything for 2 weeks, because that's the whole reason I've been working all of this time. So I can enjoy myself. But there's something different about when you're the sole point of contact. Like, I think you've done something for emails, right, as well, where you switch off at certain points of the day. Has that helped you?
Yeah, well, that was when I was in my business. So when I worked in my business, like I said, it was 24/7. I was based in Melbourne, Australia. I had an office in Austin, Texas, with a whole lot of staff. And then we had contractors selling our product all around the world, which meant at any hour of the day I was getting emails. I was on Skype calls Skype back then, and then Zoom calls, with the US or Europe or Asia. So I never switched off. And again, it was my manager, and this is one of the first things she said to me. She goes, "You've got to cut off." So I actually physically took email off my phone at 7 p.m. each night and put it back on again at 7 a.m. in the morning. So for 12 hours, because I'm one of those people, if a notification comes up, I have to look at it. It's like an addiction. And sometimes on the iPhone, you wouldn't be checking your email, but you actually hit a button and then all these notifications pop up. So I physically removing it. Again, that took me 3 or 4 years, but yeah, that's the step I had to take. Almost like, an alcoholic just removing alcohol from their house. I had to just remove temptation.
Yeah, I've done the same thing on my phone with the social media apps. So if I want to check the social media, I have to go to either the mobile internet, which is always really annoying and buggy. Like, there's a reason why these apps these companies want you to buy the apps or use the apps, because they can make the experience so much better for you, which keeps you engaged. When you use the mobile app, it's like fiddly, the things don't quite work the same way. So I found that's helped me from stopping myself from getting addicted so much. And what I often do is when I start working, I've got like a bookmarks thing that I open that and it's like 12 tabs. And it just has a kind of a dashboard of each of the different things that I work on. So in the morning, I can just see, okay, this is what this looks like, this is what that looks like. But I don't have that on my phone. So the only way for me to check that is once I actually start working and go to my laptop. Because otherwise I could just be checking when I'm out and I don't want to be in that scenario.
Yeah, and that's what I used to do. And I actually would, I would be out and it'd be a Friday night and I'd have a few after work drinks and it'd be like, midnight, 1 a.m. And then go, okay, well, it's now Friday morning in the US and I'd be drunk and on my emails and I'd send nothing inappropriate, but I'm going, this is not good. I'm pretty drunk and I'm sending business emails. I could easily make a mistake. That's how addictive it got. But the one difference I would say now, being a content creator and not having to worry about staff and partners and that sort of stuff, is I actually look forward when I turn on my phone in the morning, because generally most of my emails are comments from readers, notes from editors such as yourself. So it's very much positive. Before it was, here's a fire to put out, here's someone who's resigning, here's a client who's unhappy, here's a refund I'm going to have to do. And it just, from the very start of the morning, I was in a negative mindset. Now it's almost like endorphins kicking in straight away. I left a really nice note on my article. He's going to run it tomorrow. This person, liked my article, wants to have a chat. It's a very different mindset. So that's the most positive thing I've found out about being a creator.
I think it's just I've got the awkward problem of having too many people that I want to talk to reach out to me. It's like, I want to talk to all of you, but I can't talk to all of you. And I'm thinking, for example, one thing I want to put into place next year is to put in, I have certain days where I reply to emails. So I only reply to emails on, say, Tuesdays and Fridays. And that way it's like dedicated time where I can sit there and be like, this is my task. Like, I don't need to worry about anything else. I'm replying to everybody. Because when I'm doing it throughout the day, it can add up really quickly. And I always feel like I'm behind. So that's one way I'm trying to put into place. And what I'll say is, if something is urgent or time sensitive, I'll reply straight away. But if it's not, I want to build in that boundaries where I can say, it's okay for me to reply a few days later. Like, it's not going to end the world. Like, some people might want me to reply instantly, but then if they're kind of putting those demands on me, then that's a bit unfair. And it's trying to set that that healthy level of how available I am, because I think I make myself too available. You might have the same problem with time zones. Because of time zones, most of the people that contact me are America based. So that becomes like early afternoon to the evening is when they're most active. So I tend to get most of my emails in my evening time, which is when I want to be relaxing. But I can't help but see those emails. Have you put anything into place with that where you say, these are my working hours, and you don't go outside of that?
Yeah, well, that's what like I said, I did with my business, where I turned off so it was 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., which is, obviously 12 hours. And outside that, I switched it off. Now, I try not to check my emails after I've had dinner. That sort of becomes my time. Thankfully, like you, most of my contacts are in the United States, and that generally, that's in the morning my time, so it works out well for me. I'll wake up, I'll have a few, and then I'll filter in, and then by lunchtime they sort of die off. I don't have too much out of UK Europe, so it's not as bad for me as it would be for you. But yeah, after dinner I don't email.
Yeah, because for me, LA is 8 hours behind, so they start their day when I'm finishing my day. So whenever I'm going to jump on a call with somebody from LA or like California, then that's always going to be at the end of my work day, which is sometimes quite frustrating, because then it means that it extends my work day almost naturally. So usually in the mornings, I get my own time to focus on my own stuff before all the emails start coming in and the requests start coming in from the States.
It also depends how you see it. Like, for example, this is my time now, but it's something I enjoy doing. It's just talking. So I don't mind it. If it was, having to write an article now, I probably wouldn't. Oh, well, I wouldn't, because it's different. So it also depends on the type of work.
I think what I'm trying to put into place as well is that in the pandemic, I had no boundaries, because I'm assuming the same with you. You didn't have anything else to do. You're at home all the time. So I can take calls at 11 p.m. and I was doing that earlier in the year. Whereas now I want to try, we're back at the moment of recording this, things are going a bit backwards again, which is frustrating, but things were open again. So I wanted to have my evenings free so I could go out and meet my friends and do things in real life as well. And so this is another question for you, is that most of your business and most of your history was based mainly on real person interaction, like in real life. Did you find the shift to more Zoom calls and more online interaction tough, and you prefer like working with a community who are nearby you as well, where you can meet them in person, have in-person meetings?
Yeah, so I definitely, like yourself, a bit more extroverted, so I enjoy being around people. The one thing, because I had half my staff were in the US, so that was over via Zoom, and I had clients around the world, so I was still doing probably 2 or 3 hours of Skype or Zoom a day back then. But I missed, being able to bounce an idea, turn to the person, a few meters away and say, hey, what do you think of this? So even now when I write, a couple of days a week I'll go into a cafe nearby where I know all the staff and baristas, and have a chat to them, and I'll show them an article I'm writing. So they're not work colleagues, but I feel like that's that interaction and just the buzz. And so when we were in lockdown and we couldn't go out, I just go onto YouTube and type, cafe scene, and hit play, and it'd be like 8 hours of noise, because that's sort of what I feed off.
Yeah, I think I use the same thing. It's like the ambient coffee shop thing, and the ones I'm listening to at the moment are very Christmas themed, so that's quite nice as well. But yeah, in the last couple of weeks, I've started going to a co-working space. Well, I was going to a co-working space before in the UK, been ordered to work from home again. So it's bad timing for me, because I just started going out and now I've got to go back home. But I found that really helped. I just like the environment of being around people. And I think we were talking about this earlier, is that most advice online is really pushing remote work, because by the nature of it, most people who write articles are likely to be introverts who want to work alone, who don't want to have that interaction. So I think there's sometimes this bias towards that, which doesn't necessarily reflect the average person. So if you're listening and you enjoy working from home, you don't want the social interaction, then do that. But if you do enjoy that social interaction, then you shouldn't feel guilty about that, because I think there's kind of a blame culture that goes on sometimes, where people who like working from home say, oh, people who go to office just chat in the water cooler and they don't like work that much. So what? If that's what makes them happy and they get their work done, what does it matter if they enjoy social interaction in the workplace? And at the same time, if people don't enjoy that, then that's fine too.
I also find, when you're creating content, you're always looking for ideas. And I think the more you're out and about, you'll see more things and you'll get sparked by ideas. You'll have a conversation with someone who'll come up, will tell you a story or mention something they've read. So it's a lot easier. You get a lot more stimulation, a lot more ideas when you're out and about.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people will use YouTube, for example, and just watch random videos and they'll get ideas that way. But it depends on what stimulates you as well, right? Because I think most of my best ideas have come from conversations I've had with people and they've had a different opinion to me. And because I've had a different opinion to me, it's forced me to explain myself to understand why I think the way I do. And sometimes I change my opinion. Sometimes actually what I think isn't quite correct. And I take on their view and understand their points. And to me, that kind of interaction of people not fully agreeing with each other, that's where my ideas come from. Because then if I'm in that scenario, I think lots of other people also in that scenario where they're not sure between two different things. And I can try to explore the nuance of that.
So, yeah, I'm definitely a people person.
So for the people listening back home today, what's one mindset shift you think they could make that would make a positive difference in their lives?
One thing that I've said is, and it's hard, is not to compare yourself to others. So when I, first started becoming a writer, as yourself, you go to these Facebook groups and people will say, hey, I made this, and I'd be earning half of that and be frustrated. Or, hey, look, I went viral. Look at all my views. And it's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's about doing your own thing. And as long as I'm happy and content, and that's the mindset I took becoming a creator. Like a lot of my friends were saying, why don't you go and get this? If you don't want to start a business, why don't you go get a high power job, CEO of a company here. You'll earn hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I said, well, I don't care. That doesn't interest me. Just because, you all earn X amount doesn't mean I have to. So it's about doing your own thing and what makes you feel happy. So if you're happy earning $30,000, great. If you're happy earning $3 million, great. But as long as you're happy doing, so that was my biggest mindset shift. So that's my advice to Ash of 15 years ago and Ash today. And to people listening is, just focus on yourself and don't worry about others. And social media is the worst for this, Everyone looks fantastic. Everyone posts their best life, but the reality is a lot different.
I've got a friend recently who got a job offer for another country, but in that other country, their freedoms would be severely restricted, and they were deciding whether or not they're going to take it because it was significantly more money. And it was a difficult conversation to have with them because they're already doing very well. But they thought, if I get this more money, then that elevates them. It's like, you don't need that money. So why are you going to put yourself in a scenario where you can't have so many things in your life that you enjoy just for the money? And it's a difficult scenario because I think it comes down to comparison, where if she went to that other country, then she'd be in the top 0.5%, whereas now she's only in the top 1%. And you're comparing yourself to a very small bubble. And now she has decided not to take that because she has more freedom. And that's what's important, and she can live a life that makes her happy. But the money side of things did tempt her. And I think it does tempt a lot of people. They know deep down what they want, or they tell people in an interview, oh yeah, this is what I want from life. But when it comes down to it, the money's on the plate, it's hard to reject. So it's really good that you were able to do that. You were able to reject that offer and not take that path, which you knew would make you tons of money because it wasn't what's right for you.
And it's the same, I've invested a lot of money in travel, and I could have had a bigger house and a fancier car and that sort of stuff. And I've got friends who've never travelled and, they've got huge mansions. But I would rather say, like before we recorded, I'd rather talk to you about, the experience I had in Bhutan or how I did this on the Inca Trail rather than, hey, look, I've got an extra bedroom in my house. That's cool.
And it's like some people really value travel. And I'm the same, I've been to half the amount of countries you have, but still most by many people's standards.
You used to ignore my advice. Don't compare yourself to others. You've been to a lot of countries.
Yeah. But what I mean is that I've been to many places, but then I'm not trying to outcompete you. I've not seen, Ash has been to 105 countries, so I need to now book a holiday so I can catch up with him. I've been to many places, and those places have really added value to my life. And some people have only been to 5 places, but they remember those experiences so strongly that it adds so much value to their life, and they can be like, I love going to this place. I know some people go back to the same place every year because they go there and they just love it, and they have the staff of the hotel that they know, and it's like their family. And it really depends on the kind of person you are and what you find you enjoy. And you don't need to be like, oh, I'm not going to go to this place that I love, because otherwise I've only been to 5 countries and Amelie's been to 50 countries and Ashley's been to 100 countries. So it's really hard to break out of that because, like you said, you see it on social media. But you've always got to ask, why am I doing this? Is it because I want to do this? Or is it because that person's done it?
It's funny because I've been to 100 countries or whatever, and whenever I tell someone that, or they ask, the first thing they do is, let me work out how many I've been to, and they start counting. Like it's the natural reaction, and most times it's less, and they feel disappointed. Oh, I've only been to 20. It doesn't matter. It's not a competition. I didn't get a medal. But if you've been to 20 countries and had the time of your life, fantastic. If you've been to 2, fantastic. If you've just travelled around your own country and been to lots of different towns, fantastic. As long as you're doing something.
It's been a pleasure to talk to you, Ash. Where can the people listening hear more from you?
They can read me on Medium, a lot in Entrepreneur's Book. That's probably the best place to find me. I should put the links up. I'm also on Newsbreak. I've had my own podcast and I've been a guest on other podcasts, but I'm sure you'll add those links. But thank you so much. We could have talked for hours. We could have made a whole series out of this, but it's been fantastic. And you've asked great questions. I've read a lot of podcasts and you've asked some really good questions.
So there is one more question, which I end up on for everybody. And that's, what's one small thing that's brought you joy recently?
My dog. I was talking about this with my kids tonight over dinner, actually, is that he's the one who's always happy. Whenever I come back home, his tail wags. He doesn't care if I've had a bad day, how much I've earned, what I've done. It's just he has the same joy every time. So I always look at him when I'm feeling down and he wags his tail and goes, there you go. He's happy. I should be happy.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, I'd love it if you could leave me a 5-star review. It really helps get the message out further. Wherever you're listening, it would be awesome if you could subscribe and to share on your social media channels. If you want to see more of my work and advice, you can find all of the links in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I hope you have a lovely day.